are from Newburgh, Oregon, one of the Quaker Meccas places, and home of George Fox University, where we both went to school. But we pastored for 20 years. A few of those years together in a formal sense, with both of us on staff, but most of those just a team ministry ourselves. So a church in Oregon and a church in Idaho. And then for the last 10 years, Shawn's been working as an associate superintendent of global outreach, pastoral care in Northwest Yearly Meeting. And, excuse me, about maybe, let's see, I think I was also supposed to tell you about our kids a little bit. We have 2 kids, and they're young adults. We have a son who is out of school, he's out of college, and he's married, and he and his wife both live and work in Newburgh, nearby us. And then we have a daughter who's a sophomore in college, and she's attending university at North Park University in Chicago. So we've been practicing being far away from each other. So they're great kids, and they're supportive, very supportive of this new calling for us, but we all have to admit on a fairly regular basis that being excited and supportive doesn't necessarily mean that it's not hard. So, let's see, forgot what else I was going to say.
How we got here. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we were out for a walk one night, and we live just close to George Fox University, and we go and walk around the track at the school. And so we were walking and talking about what might be different about our lives when our kids were grown, kind of realizing that that was coming soon. And as we talked, we realized that one of the things that we've held, I think, in our hearts for a really long time was the desire to do some ministry overseas. And we've always been drawn to cross-cultural ministries and maybe cross-cultural everything. But we've always been on this side, and we've been the senders. And we've been on the mission board of our yearly meeting, and Shawn's worked for the yearly meeting and global outreach. And we've done short-term missions and all different kinds of things, but we thought, we have a chance. This could be our chance now. And so we started talking about what kind of an organization we would want to work for, and we didn't really have any specific place in mind, but we both kind of have some Spanish. And I don't know if I sort of imagined that it might be a Spanish-speaking country, because we've invested maybe more time and energy into different ministries with immigrants and different people in our part of the country. But so we just kind of started putting it out there as far as researching different places and things. And one of the things that somebody said was, "Have you thought about Kenya?" And we were kind of like, I don't know. No, we haven't thought about Kenya. Well, you should think about Kenya. The African Ministries Office with FUM has a position in Kenya. And so we kind of let a little time go by. And Shawn, in his job, used to collaborate with Eden and Grace from FUM on some work that they did together in Palestine. And she said, "Have you thought about this position we have in Kenya?" And it kind of kept coming up. And so we finally said, we should actually think about this. It's a little bit like the Eli and Samuel thing. Samuel. And finally, as we did look at it, we realized it met all our criteria of the kind of ministry that we wanted to participate in. And so we got together, a group of folks from our church, and had a meeting for clearness. We talked with Colin, and we talked with Eden, and everybody kind of said, take the next step. Whatever the next step is, take the next step and see what happens. So we just kept taking the next step, and it's what happened was we're going to So, and we're quite excited about it. Every once in a while, I guess I get a little bit of mixed reactions from people. Sometimes people go, so like now at your age, you're gonna go? And sometimes other people that look at me like a little bit scared and almost repelled. And they're like, ooh, better you than me, or I don't know, that kind of a thing. And yet the other day I was getting my hair cut, and this gal who I don't think has any kind of connections to missions, she just said, what an awesome opportunity. I mean, why wouldn't you go? I mean, if you get a chance like this, why wouldn't you go? And I said, absolutely. That is exactly how we feel. We kind of feel like we're lucky enough to get picked. And so Shawn is going to tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do.
Katrina,
yes.
You want to tell them about your proposal? That's a good story. You need to hear that.
So we got engaged in Kenya 30 years ago. And we were leading a high school short-term mission trip. And we were barely older than the kids, I think. I'm not sure why they let us take their kids halfway across the world. But anyway, we've been friends for a long time. We had not ever dated or anything, but we...
Each other.
No. But we've been very close friends, and actually always kind of on some level compared whoever we were dating at the time with each other, and they never really kind of, I don't know, matched up. But anyway, so on that trip, we were in Kaimosi, and one night we had this very fateful conversation. That the short version of the story was, Shawn said, have you ever thought about us dating? And I said, yeah. Well, we've been friends a long time. I thought about it. And he goes, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, I thought about it, and I thought, no, I wouldn't date you. But I would marry you. And I was like, yeah, I thought about it. And it was kind of an all or nothing. So I was like, okay, me too. So a couple of nights later, on what we've been told from the origins of the missionaries there, that there was this hill of vision where they looked out over the valley, and so we'd heard this story. So yeah, so we went up there, and I don't think we could see the valley or anything, but Shawn formally proposed to me, so that it was official. So.
The comparison dating works, huh?
That's right.
That's where I've been wrong.
Yeah. Oh! Nancy, would you like rebuttal time? Yeah. Wow. Well, off on another note. Yes, it did work out, and we're going to get to celebrate our 30th anniversary there. And so that's really exciting. I mean, you know, who knew? We came home and people's jaws went, you know. But most people who knew us real well said, you finally figured it out, huh? You know, like, we've known all this time. Like, oh, okay. You know, where were we? So we kind of talked about what we would be most helpful tonight, and mostly we'd like to know what your questions are, but I have some slides that we'll go through. I'd like to know, first of all, how many of you have been to Kenya? Yeah, I thought there'd be a decent group here. So most of you have probably had more experience in Kenya than we have. So we've been there a total of about 5 weeks in our lives. So So we don't have much expertise in the area of everything Kenya. We have some knowledge, but so you feel free to correct us when we don't, when we get off base. It's all right. We understand these things. One of the things that Katrina alluded to was that how did this match up with what it is that the organization of FUM, and we're good friends with Colin and Janine Saxton. We pastored together at a church, and I worked in the yearly meeting office with Colin before he came to FUM. And now that we're coming to FUM, he's leaving. So it works out pretty well. There's balance in the universe. We never can be in the same place very long together, you know. But we're really drawn to the FUM mission statement and this idea that to gather people into fellowships where Jesus Christ is known, loved, and obeyed as teacher and Lord. That was something that was really important to us. We are excited to work with Friends. We thought we might have to move out of kind of the Friends realm to do some things we wanted to do. And so it was exciting for us to be able to say, no, we get to stay in this bigger family of friends, and that was really important to us. We have, at least on my side, I know 6 or 7 generations of friends, and so it's just been a really important piece. So anyway, we were drawn to that. So really quickly, program officer, you'll see it spelled a different way. You'll see it spelled P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M-E, which is would be the British English spelling. FUM has tried hard to spell things in English as they would be spelled in the country where people are serving. So that I didn't write it that way, but you'll see it both ways. And it's quite a large job description, by the way. There's always that one line, and other tasks as assigned, that sort of thing. I don't know why they don't just put that first, and then leave the rest blank, because this is the way it's going to be. But primary job will be a communication piece. And as you know, Eden was in Kenya. Eden Grace, who is now in the FUM office as the director of global ministries. She was in Kenya for 9 years with her family, serving as the program officer, although I think it was called something different then. But when she left to come to Richmond and work in Richmond 4 years ago, no one ever replaced her. And so they've been looking for someone to fill this position. The job description is a little different than what Eden did. And she had responsibility for all the financial stuff. And so we're grateful that that's not on the job description. And hopefully not even in the other jobs as assigned part. So one of our primary jobs is to be connected very much with the programs that FUM, the projects that FUM is still responsible for in Kenya. As you know, the work of FUM is no longer as North Americans sending missionaries to a mission field in Kenya. Kenya has standalone yearly meetings, and there are peer yearly meetings with FUM North America, with you all. And so there isn't a kind of a hierarchical or paternalistic sending anymore. We go as co-laborers, as co-workers, and that's a really important piece to us. But what often happens is good things are going on in Kenya that nobody ever hears about here, especially since Eden's not in the office. So John Mahanji, who runs and directs the African Ministries office, said, we need somebody from another part of the world, a friend that is not Kenya, is not African. Because we need, one, we want to be an international office, and two, we need to get the stories told back to other groups of people, and we think a Westerner would be able to do that. So that's one of the primary reasons for having a Westerner in this position. In fact, they only would interview Westerners for this, and so there was an intentionality about that. Not because we were going to come and be able to do anything special as Westerners, other than we have these bridges and networks and relationships already. So that makes sense. So communication is all over our job description. So we'll hope that you will hear a lot more stories in our newsletter, in the FUM work, maybe coming back to your local mission boards or to your yearly meeting mission boards, and our hope is to get is to get all kinds of stories, not just from Kenya, but from Tanzania and Uganda as well. And Tanzania is kind of in the crosshairs in a good way for what is the next kind of big emphasis. John Mahanji is excited about Tanzania, and I think some of the Tanzanian friends have felt a little neglected, and so it's time there's going to be some emphasis there. So I imagine you're going to be hearing more about Tanzania as things go on. So the projects that are a part of FUM that we'll be responsible for is, you're familiar with John Moru and the Turkana mission. You probably know Sammy Latole and the Samburu mission. Some of you have probably met these people who were here last summer. Friends Church Peace Team. You maybe met Getri Agiza at the, either here or at the Triennial. She is one of our new heroes, actually. Well, they all are, but Getri is a force of nature, and I'll tell you, we're going to learn some things from her, I think. Some of you know Robert Wafula, who's the new principal at Friends Theological College, and Lagulu Hospital and the Lindy School are the primary ones, although there will be some that come and go, some other projects, but those are kind of the ones we start working with initially. So, projects. And we're not running these projects. We're very capable people giving leadership. Our job is to come alongside, to provide encouragement, maybe some project, what's the word I'm looking for? Project, help people who are new. John Moru is not going to be in Turkana forever. He's looking to do some other things, and he's training someone else. So as we can come alongside and help do some work, maybe some mentoring and some of those kinds of things. So that's what that will look like. And then we're hoping to help bridge whatever gaps there are between North America and Africa, between African friends themselves, where they may not know what's going on in Uganda, the Ugandans may not know what's going on. I mean, you don't even know what's going on in other people's yearly meetings in FUM always, do you? I mean, this is just kind of the deal. So we're going to do what we can to kind of raise the awareness of one another and the ways that people can work together. Okay. Questions yet? Okay. So, some of you have been to Kenya. Are y'all pretty confident about where Kenya is? Let me tell you Africa, okay? We'll start, we'll get the continent, okay? Yeah, this is Africa, and this is, so let's start with direction. Is Kenya north? Would it be considered north? East? I hear east. So that would be on this side over here. Yes? Yes? Okay. All right, you're getting warm. So there is Kenya. That's the one you had in mind, right? Yes, I thought you might have. Everybody's, yes, that's the one I had. So let's see. Right above, north of Kenya is Ethiopia. Here's Somalia. And here is Uganda. Uganda's here, sorry. South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania. And anybody know what this country is?
Burundi.
No? It's Lake Victoria, actually. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that was unfair. Yes, Rwanda and Burundi are right down here. And you might notice that if you put Rwanda and Burundi together, they're not as big as Lake Victoria, which is the second largest lake in the world after one we claim here, Lake Superior. So anyway, just a little geography, that's kind of fun. This is what the country looks like. There's a little coastline down here on the Indian Ocean. And let's see, so Nairobi here, the capital, the next largest city, Mombasa, and the third largest city is Kisumu out here, and it's on just this little inlet, what looks like a little inlet of Lake Victoria, but it's actually quite a large body of water, just that little arm that comes out there. So, and most of Friends' work is from Nairobi north and west. This area here is where most of the Friends Friends work is, because in 1902, when Arthur Chilson and his crew got on the train from Mombasa and rode it all the way out to Kisumu, they began then seeking where they were going to go, and everything from Kisumu goes up. And so they found themselves in Kaimosi, which I don't think is on here, but up in this, well, let's see where, yes, up south of Kakamega here is Kaimosi, and that's where the mission began in the really early 1900s. And if you want to read a great book, it's one called Ambassador of the King, and it's by Edna Chilson, Arthur's wife, and it is fantastic history. It is just really something. You'll cringe at some of the references to African people and some other things like that, because language has changed a little bit, but it is amazing. He talks about hunting 15-foot long pythons and some things like that. So it's really fun. Anyway, so this is the area where most of the work of Friends happened, and well, I'll show you here. This is where we'll live in Kisumu. Clear over there, that's where the African Ministries office is. This is what the African Ministries office looks like from the outside. And that arrow isn't there normally, just so you know. But that's where we are. You can see over here. You can see part of the lake. So it's real close to the lake there. And so this is where all the magic happens. I understand, in Kisumu. This is the front yard of the FUM guest house in Kisumu, and we're going to live there. And so when you come and visit, I didn't say if, I said when, you'll get to stay here with us, and we'll take good care of you. You're going to wait a while, aren't you, so that we know what we're doing? Yeah, that's I understand. Somebody said to me the other day, I'm going to probably let you have a little bit of time there, so that when I come and visit, we won't get lost. So the Turkana mission is kind of the largest big city. You can actually, bigger town. You can fly to Lodwar now. It used to be a 2-day drive. Now you can fly up there, and this is where the Turkana mission is. Clear up in this corner of Kenya is where there's a large refugee camp. South Sudanese that are there, and the Turkana mission now is reaching out to that refugee camp and giving a lot of ministry to them. Many of you know John Moru, and what an incredible minister he is. Here is the refugee camp. In fact, most of these folks, I believe, would be South Sudanese refugees. Here's what church looks like in Turkana. Somebody was talking to me about being up in Turkana a lot, and yes, and so we went there on the time when we got engaged, and on that trip we were able to go to Turkana as well, and so we're excited to get back and visit and see what that was like. The Samburu mission, I'm just kind of going through the projects here quickly. This is a similar kind of ministry, but not as old as the Turkana mission. The Turkana mission will be 50 years old in 2020, the year of the triennial. So, and the triennial, will be where? Kenya this year. And so the FUM triennial, Friends, USFW, and Friends Min triennials will all happen the same time in Kisumu. Here is Sammy Lutole, who is the mission director of the Samburu mission, and some of the leaders there. You might know Del and Suzanne Livingston, or heard of their work doing biosand water filters. They're from the Northwest and went to college with our folks, and they're actually living in the house already where we'll land. So they're taking good care of it and getting it all ready. But they did some work in Samburu, as they have among all the Friends groups, with the biosand water filters. Friends Theological College is Kaimosi, just south of Kakamega there. Let's see, here's Robert Wafula. Some of you might know Lon Fendel, who's worked for FUM and worked with the Theological College, most recently helping them get their accreditation. Lon is also from the Northwest, and we live in the same community, so it was fun to see him while we were visiting there. This is the chapel building that's relatively new and a beautiful space and a great place. And some of you know about the solar projects that have been going on there, and I understand those are up and running like they're supposed to. So that's great. Mount Elgon is one of the places that the Friends Church Peace Team has been working diligently, and Getri Agiza is the director of that program, and like I said earlier, she is a force of nature and not to be messed with. She told us, asked us when we were coming back, and we said, well, when I get our funds raised, and she said, well, then you know I'm going to be praying, and when I put my knee down, things happen. And I said, that's good with me. That's great. So here we met with some leaders. These had been primarily militia leaders from there's a Mount Elgon resistance group that I'm forgetting the initials right now. But it was born out of decades of, the British took a lot of the best land when they were there, and then when they left, instead of giving it back to the people who had lived there initially, rich landowners were able to buy up that land, and so it further kept these folks off of their land, and so it's just created some horrific kinds of stories, and we heard some of those stories and the stories of how God has redeemed folks in the midst of that. This gentleman here, Stephen, is number 2 in the militia. Actually, he was second in command. He spent time in jail. He's found Christ through the peace team work, and his life has been transformed. Another woman who was here talked about going into those peace training sessions with people who had killed her parents in this skirmish, and yet realizing that forgiveness was the only way she was going to be able to live a life that had any kind of meaning to it. Fascinating and fabulous work. I'm really thrilled with, and I should say here, both Katrina and I have recognized this is y'all's doing. This is FUM stuff. That's you. And now us. And we're so grateful for the work that you all have done as a part of FUM. And of course, such great work on the part of Kenyans and other Africans. They're the ones that have carried the lion's share of this most recently. But wow. This is FUM. This is you. And so this is what's really exciting about this idea of, Katrina had said earlier to someone, I heard her say, it felt like we were going to Africa. Now that we've been in FUM a little bit, we feel like we're being sent. And that is more and more true as we meet more and more of you, that this is the group of people that's helping send us, and we really feel a part of that. And you ought to know about Getri and about the Friends Church Peace Team and those sorts of things. Katrina and I would talk for a long time about that, and you probably think I am talking for a long time. So some of you are familiar with work at Lugulu Hospital. I don't know if you know that they won 3 awards this last year. One of them was in HIV/AIDS care, and but those are stories that we don't hear until someone's there to kind of tell those stories. Eden walked into the office, and there's 3 trophies sitting there on the desk that they've had for months. Well, what are these? Oh, there's some really neat awards that we won. Well, we're going to tell anybody, and so we get to do those kinds of things, hopefully. Okay, we're back to more questions. This is the time. Yes, sir.
So you said it used to be a 2-day drive up to Tacona. What's the distance actually in miles?
Oh, that's a good question. Somebody might know a little better idea. It's about 500 miles? Yeah.
You only go 20 miles an hour.
Right. And we've heard, everybody says bring 2 spare tires and hope you only have 2 flat tires. That's just part of the deal.
Spare tires attached to them.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's, we kind of feel like we're missing out on the experience if we fly, but we might fly,
The desert is smoother than the road.
Yeah, well, this is true. Into Samburu, there are often pirate
Yeah.
folks that instead of on the water, they wait for groups to come through and often hold up and rob. So you have to sometimes get, depending on what's going on at the time, you have to, in certain stretches, get some escorts, police escorts that come along with you there. But once you get to Samburu, it's amazing stuff, and so well worth it. What other questions? I don't have a lot more to say, so, or to slides.
What's the major religion in Kenya?
Christianity.
Because of the British Empire?
Yeah, largely because of that.
But you got Sunnis, which I'm assuming are Islamic.
Yeah, on the coast and along the border of Somalia there, you have a pretty heavy Islamic influence. And, you know, the bombing of the mall a number of years ago, the embassy bombing that happened, those were both Nairobi, so those impacted, and those were parts of the Al-Shabaab movement largely that comes from Somalia and places like that. So far, it's been fairly well contained on that side, but there are mosques all over Kenya, including in Kisumu, and but from my understanding at least, there hasn't been quite the same, obviously, impact in Western Kenya, so heavily Christian compared to the East Coast and the area with Somalia. Some of you would have some better understanding of that, I'm sure, and experience, but feel free to jump in if there's more to add.
Are there other organizations other than FUM in that area?
Yes, yeah, quite a few. FUM, I mean, many of the early mission groups talked and kind of went to different parts, and but there are other African mission groups, and of course there are organizations in Kisumu like I'm losing it now, Heifer and other NGOs that are there, based there. And then there are there are lots of churches. There's an African Inland Mission, AIM, there is large Pentecostal, largely African based. So there's a wide variety of Christian expressions there, certainly. Yes, sir.
So, language and cultural training you're receiving?
Yeah, this is it. We're hoping that you're going to tell us some stuff. Well, we are not doing anything real intensive. We've been working with. We have some folks that are kind of going to be cultural. Mentors for us, and that we're working with there in Kisumu, and of course we have Eden. We are going to take some language. We'll take some Swahili in the fall intensive in Tanzania. English, you get along pretty well with English in Kenya at least, and mostly in Uganda. Tanzania is a lot less English is spoken, and so we want to be able to have some working knowledge of Swahili, which is and English and Swahili are the two official languages of Kenya there. So Swahili is a really interesting language because it has smatterings of Spanish in it and Arabic. Largely came from a tribe that was on a coastal tribe where there was a lot of trading that happened, and so it spread in all kinds of places. Eden was telling me she was in Palestine, and we're hearing some people talk, and she said, those people are speaking Swahili. And in fact, they're speaking Arabic. And so she was picking out words, and same with the Spanish. There are certain words that are the same in both languages. So the vowels are pronounced like Spanish vowels. So yeah, that would be interesting. So we're going to do an intensive language study. And what I'm guessing is going to happen is we're going to recognize what we don't know, at some point, and figure out how we can get some specific training in some areas as we've been there a little while. Some of those kinds of things. Other questions?
Do you have a target date of arrival?
Well, yes, actually. We are hoping to leave next month. March 27th. We were They launched us in October 1st, and so we were just kind of going to see how the fundraising went, and it's been going pretty well, enough that they said you can buy your tickets. You still can't go if you're not 100% funded. So make them changeable, you know. So we have changeable tickets, but we're hoping, we've set them initially for March 27th, and we thought it would be a fun thing to be able to be in Kenya by Easter, which is April 1st this year. So we are looking forward to that as a possibility. So, I mean, that's one of the other questions is how you can be supportive of us. We have a 3-year commitment at this point, and of course the FUM office has wisely said you need to raise the money for all 3 years before you go, and so in pledges and gifts, and so that's what we've been up to. And we have these nice little brochures with our faces on them, and some description of what's going on. And then there's this little piece here that you tear off, and we have some envelopes that you can send in. And I guess I'd like to challenge you to think about, one-time gifts are great. We love one-time gifts. What we feel like is most helpful to us in the long term is people who are willing to give over the course of some time. Over the 3 years, maybe once a year, give once a year or once a month, or we have people that are giving everything from $5 a month on up to whatever a month. And what that does for us is you come with us. And we're reminded constantly of the kind of support that we have, because every month there are these folks who faithfully give, and that means something to us. The amount is not the important thing, but having you as partners with us is really the important thing for us, because every month then we feel like there's a group of people that's got our back, that knows we're here, that's remembering when they write that check or when that goes out of their bank account. Oh yeah, Shawn and Katrina are there in Kenya, and might be reminded to pray for us. Something like that. So certainly, don't hear me say we are discouraging gifts of any kind. But if you're feeling challenged, or you feel like it would be something you'd be willing to take on, we'd really enjoy having you with us over the next 3 years in some way. And so it might be that you decide that you can do $10 a month and are able to do that in a way that it can come from your credit card, it can come from your bank account, you can remember and write a check every month, whatever is most helpful for you. The FUM office will do what they can to make it easy on you, you know. Something to consider as you think about that. And we just really appreciate that. We also will have a sign-up. Oh, we forgot to put our sign-up out. So we'll have a sign-up sheet up here that we would love to have your name and at least your email address for, because we want to send you a newsletter. You know, it's just what missionaries do. You go to missionary school and they teach you how to write newsletters and send one. But I don't know if they teach people who are on the sending end always to read them. And so our reminder is, if you get one and you sign up, please take the time to read it. We're trying not to make it super long. We think it's you're going to be able to handle it in a short amount of time there. And we are hoping to really add pictures and stories of people that we're working with in Africa. Right now, the newsletter is largely about us because we're getting ready to go. So, but we hope as we are there, you'll see more and more African faces and stories as a part of that, as well as what's going on with us. And so we'll put a sign-up sheet out here, and it would be terrific for those of you who feel up to the challenge of reading our newsletter, we'd love to have you do that. So, any other questions? We don't want to keep you here all evening. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you can answer this, but as you were talking, came to mind, I think they call them shepherd schools. Do you know if that's still, is that Trapana, I think it was?
Boy, is that a project that has been a part of an FUM project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, information came through me.
Okay.
It was related to a Bible school project a few years ago or something. I don't remember know for sure, but
Right.
it came to my head, and I thought, I haven't heard anything about that for a while.
Right.
Is that still a mystery or not, or?
We will track that down. We don't know the answer to that. Somebody else asked us about another project today that we didn't know about. It was about girls' education. We do know that there's a pretty heavy emphasis on girls' education in both Samburu and Turkana, but I don't know specifically what about that project, but I'd love to find out.
It was for kids, you know, that were herding sheep during the day, so they could go to school.
Yeah.
Was the
I have heard something about this. I think,
concept.
yeah.
You know, it makes sense. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I would assume it would be continuing. but
Yeah, I would think so.
Just haven't heard it mentioned.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of what we're talking about, is trying to keep things in front of people.
So it's a reminder.
And-
that we're missing out on things.
Right, and that we can be a resource for folks like yourself and say, you know, I gave to this shepherd school several years ago. What's become of that?
Right.
And what do you know about that? And we can continue to kind of raise awareness about that. So, yeah, that's a great example. Somebody, yeah.
I think you mentioned the triennials in 2020. Did you
Yeah.
say where it was going to be?
It's going to be in Kisumu. It's actually going to be right across the street from our house. There's this big field. No, and there's a college that's right across the street, and so they'll be able to use the facilities there for, you know, the dormitories and all of that sort of thing. So it'll be a really nice. So that's a great goal for you to think about coming in 2020 to the triennial, and you could be there in Kisumu. So yeah, that's great. I can't remember what time of the year. It's springtime, I think. April, maybe. Other questions you might have?
I have a question about the politics of Kenya. I know there's been a lot of corruption and upheaval. What's kind of going on there now?
Corruption and upheaval. Yeah. Nothing much has changed in some of the, the 2007 election was horrendous, the result of that failed election, and thousands of people lost their lives and hundreds of thousands were displaced. And that was what birthed the Friends Church Peace Team, in fact. And so hopes of not repeating that. The same names in politics continue to come up, especially presidential politics. Odinga and Kenyatta. And Kenyatta's, of course, his father was the first president when they gained independence. Odinga's father was the first vice president when they gained independence. And they parted ways, their fathers parted ways soon after that, and they've not come back together since, I don't think. Odinga is largely from the western area, so he's very popular out in the Kisumu and western area among friends. And Kenyatta is from a different tribe and not from that area. So Kenyatta won this last election, or won an election, and then it was canceled. The Supreme Court said it was no good, so they did it again, and there was a huge, only about 30% of the population voted. Most of the Odinga folks refused to vote. So Kenyatta, of course, won. And there was some protesting and violence after that, nothing like what's happened in 2007. Unfortunately, what often happens is the police get involved, and that's when people start to die. And there's a lot of violence that happens in those ways. The Odinga supporters did a mock inauguration for him just here a couple 3 weeks ago. And the police stayed away from that. It was peaceful. People remained pretty calm. But stuff continues to boil under the surface. And there's a lot of... From what I understand, one of the things that's helped is that a few years ago, Kenya went to a county system. It used to be all the money was centralized in the capital, and so it got spent out of the capital to things that were needed, infrastructure, whatever. It all went that way. And so unless you were connected, it was hard to get stuff happening in your county. Well, they created these counties and then send money to those counties. And so there's a greater chance. There's a more grassroots option, and every Kenyan I've talked to said it's a way better system. So those have been some improvements that have helped there. More bridges and roads and things like that get built, medical clinics, things like that. The Chinese have come and are rebuilding all of the highway or major roadways And they're beautiful. You wouldn't believe it. Eden kept saying, we were writing with her, this can't be Kenya. What, you know, she was kind of, it looks like she was disappointed that we weren't getting this experience, you know, of more potholes. And there are plenty in other roads, but these roads were nice and smooth. So we're happy about that. So yeah, good question. And I'm not an expert. This is just my smatterings of understanding about this. So
what is the Chinese interest?
Chinese are very interested in Africa. I've been sending teachers to China for the last 10 years and been watching Chinese politics a lot. And China has, it's building their economy. They're building all the infrastructure of much of Africa. And they can do it cheaper than Europe and cheaper than the West. And they are doing well in Africa. And in many ways, it's a really mutually beneficial kind of relationship, but it really changes some of the balances of some things that we're more used to having a little more Western influence. And so, but yeah, that's a large part of what China's doing is building their own economy and helping in the meantime, coming and doing this. They can do it fast. China is able to. They are not lacking labor, you know, and so they can throw a number of people, plus they hire local Africans to work, and so they're putting a lot of Africans to work, which is appreciated, you know. Who knows how it will end up, all of that relationship, but at the time being, it seems like it's a positive one.
They've also recently discovered oil and maybe natural gas in the Turkana Desert area, and I think there's international investors that are pushing hard to buy some of those up, and there's going to be land rights showdowns, I think, going on between the tribal folks who, I mean, that's theirs, and then, you know, who's gonna win on that when it comes to dollars?
Up to this point, it hasn't mattered because it's a desert and nobody wants to move up there. But there isn't, you know, nobody has deeds to property up in the desert, and these are largely pastoralist people who herd goats and wander, you know, all over. And it's been lately they've been confined more by growth and are becoming more settled. But it could be a really hard thing when oil and gas, you know, the money starts to come in, and that's tough. So
history repeats itself.
It doesn't it? Yeah, it really does. It really does. And usually the people who don't have the money end up paying for it in a lot of ways. And so that's our fear a little bit with folks in Turkana and Samburu, places like that. Yeah, it's an item of prayer, certainly.
Just out of curiosity, is China buying up land in Kenya?
I don't know how much they're buying in Kenya. I know that they have been buying some in other parts of Africa. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me in some places. Yeah. Other. You maybe have questions for Katrina. You're tired of hearing me. She might have something. By the way, we're going to share this job. So we're gonna do this, and we're gonna figure this out. So that's another item of prayer. Yeah, Katrina's been asking for that prayer everywhere we go. I don't understand, but anyway, we're looking forward to that. I know it will have its challenges as well, but we're excited about being together a lot. We've been doing separate jobs here the last 10 years, especially, and so this is a fun new undertaking for us, but certainly will have its challenges. Thank you.
Shawn and Katrina are going to be at breakfast tomorrow morning sometime, so if you're at breakfast, then you can talk to them some more. They're spending tonight and tomorrow night out at the Quakerdale Duplex, so they can have a little bit of time by themselves in between staying with people all along the way. A couple of things. I know with Oscar, you know, he got his money right before he left, Oscar Mambali, to go to Belize. And we had sent some money, and what FEM did was just split that up into the months.
Right, yeah, right.
So we have an offering here, and we're taking an offering Sunday. You are our missionaries, so we're not going to give you this money tonight. We will add to it the money we collect next Sunday, because you're our missionaries of the month, and we'll be able to send that to FUM, and they can split it up over the months, but I want to encourage anybody who wants to individually support them to do that. And it seems like that was one more thing. Oh, we talked about the newsletters. One thing we learned at a missionary support seminar was if you get an email or newsletter from your missionary, just reply back. Say something that's going on. Say, we're praying for your concerns, just so they know it's being read and that you're interested in their life. And that was one thing we were encouraged to do, not just to send, because then they don't know if anybody's read them or if they're at all interested in what's going on.
Go out into a black hole.
Yes, and we want to keep the communication going both ways. And I told them one of the things that the yearly meeting mission board is wanting to do is our missionaries, if they just want to send a private email to our mission board, things that, maybe they can't put in the newsletter, real concerns or worries, discouragement, that as a mission board, we can be praying for them, that they may not want to put in a newsletter to everybody, but that we could cover them with our prayers that way.
If you're a Facebook person, there's a way to sign up to give that through, If you're a Facebook person, there's a way to sign up through Facebook also that's quite easy. The nice thing about that is it lets us know that you're going to be a partner. We immediately see the pledge and your name and that sort of thing. It's really a thrill when we see another name come through there. But FUM also tells us when we have new donors. One of the hard things about a local offering is that we don't get to see all the people's names who support. We like to send a thank you note, and so maybe when you collect that offering, if there's some in checks that people don't mind, we'd love to send a thank you note to people who are giving, just that, that connection. If you want to be anonymous, that's fine too, but we like to be able to attach names to certain churches and support and that sort of thing. So thank you.
We can send a thank you note to the church.
And certainly we'll want to do that as well. So we'll get the sign-up sheet out, and for those of you who want to sign up to get our newsletter, or you can sign up to come visit us, I suppose. There's not a line on there, but just write it in the side, and we'll be glad to host you. Thank you for being here.
And they finally figured out what HC-NP stood for. That was kind of a concern for a while. They weren't sure who they were talking.
It's short for good pie.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I'd like our local mission group to come up here and we'll pray with Katrina and Shawn. The ones that are here.
Where's Jamie? We can stand in for a minute.
That's great.
His wife's working.
Oh,
He brought the soup.
great. Did you take pie home?
Yeah. Dear Father, we just thank you for Katrina and Shawn for coming and sharing and for traveling around to spread what they are going to be doing in Africa. We just pray that you will be with them as they work out this co-directorship between themselves and learning how to work with each other full time. We pray that you will give them wisdom and discernment in their work that they do in Africa. We just pray that their support will be met by March 27th so that they can head over to Kisumu. We thank you for this replacement that's been long awaited. We just pray that your blessings will go with them and that their work will be fruitful. In Jesus' name, amen. We're glad you all came. It's nice to have a big group here.
Yeah.
For the nice meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.